Good morning, afternoon, evening, or whenever you're listening to this, everyone. This is the Checking the Gate podcast, and I am Doug.
And I'm Mason.
First, I want to say this is going to be the first episode which has the audio quality that I think that I want it to be at.
Oh, good.
So yeah, I've already edited the first 3 episodes, Jurassic Park and the first 2 Spider-Man movies.
Mm-hmm.
And the audio quality wasn't great, but since then, which we recorded those quite a while ago, since then I have figured out what the technical problem was. No, I didn't figure out what the problem was. I just figured out my way around it. So I still have no idea why the mic was making that sound, or that sounded like that.
The mysteries of sound engineering.
Yeah, I've also discovered that sometimes I'm really frustrating to listen to. In that, like, I'm trying to put together a sentence, but it really sounds incoherent.
And you've only just figured this out?
No, I kind of knew, but it's like, it's different when I actually have to
hear
hear it and edit it to make it sound better. There was one thing I was trying to say in the Spider-Man 2 episode, and it just wasn't coming out. And I just it sounded like just a mess. I'm like, what on earth am I trying to say?
Speaking of, I said something incorrect in one of the last Spider-Man episodes.
Okay.
I was talking about, I think it was The Normal Heart, the TV movie, that has Mark Ruffalo in it. And I also thought that it had James Franco in it, and it doesn't. It has Taylor Kitsch. So.
This is the one about...
Mark Ruffalo making out with the dude, and I thought it was James Franco.
Okay.
Yeah. So
but it's not James Franco.
No, it's Taylor Kitsch.
Okay.
I looked it up, and I'm going to try to be more factual.
Yeah, Mason, I think that you got to keep better track of who Mark Ruffalo makes out with.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the responsible thing to do.
It is.
Yeah. Okay. So, without further ado... Okay, there's another thing I catch, is that I say a lot, and I say it so much, like, I'm using Audacity, and you can kind of see the wavelengths in which, how things look, or how the look of their sound, and I can catch my with it before it comes, just by looking, and it's like, oh, there it is, it's coming, and then I hear,
Well, we could turn it into a drinking game.
With you, it's different, though. Like, you have a lot of, and stuff like that. Anyway, but I don't want you to be too conscious of it. Like, just record however you want to record.
Yeah.
For the listener, this may be completely irrelevant because I've cut out so much of it that they're like, you guys don't say it that much.
Yeah, well... we could leave it in and just turn it into a drinking game.
Yeah, I suppose so. Then we'll release the uncut versions.
Yes.
And every time Doug says or Mason says or something like that, take
a
a shot. And then next thing you know, our entire listening audience has passed away from alcohol poisoning.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, great, now we have to start a fan base from scratch.
If you drink responsibly. Please drink while of age. We really shouldn't be encouraging unhealthy behavior or underage drinking. But if whatever you do it safely.
There we go. Exactly. Even if it's goblin gas.
Yes.
Especially if it's goblin gas, actually.
Well, if it's goblin gas, might be a good idea to just avoid it all.
Which leads us into our movie. We've been wanting to talk about this one for a long time, but we've had trouble.
Wanting to?
We've been, we've been wanting. We have been talking about it for a long time, anyway.
Yeah, but I think there's a difference between feeling of obligation and wanting to.
Well, now that we've actually watched the movie, I'm sure you want to podcast about it, so you feel... I mean, because you've been... Like, from day one, you've been doing nothing but complaining about the notion of even watching it.
Well, I like to live in this fantasy world where Spider-Man 3 didn't exist, where the internet found out it was going to be horrible and yelled at Sony, and they said, okay, we'll listen. And it, just didn't give us what we got.
Well, there you have it, folks. So I guess let's talk about what the story's about.
Well, poor Peter Parker was pitiful. He couldn't have been any shyer.
Every time. Well, okay, so Parker is
finding success.
Finding some success. He's got some more steady work at the Bugle,
Yep.
but most importantly, he is finding success in his love life with Mary Jane, and he wants to marry her because he's like, you know what, like, lock her down, buddy. Lock her down. Like, she's a bodacious redhead actress.
Model, too.
And, I mean, sure, you're Spider-Man, but hey, like, doesn't mean you can go...
She has options.
Really. Yeah, she does. I mean, really, as we've seen through the last few movies, she's got plenty of options. Spider-Man doesn't have to be that one. She likes him for some reason.
No idea why.
but they, tie the knot. He gets a ring from his Aunt May. Gets hijacked by Harry Osborn, who's now gone full on loopy. The Goblin gas we're talking about. He's charged up on it, and he is mad as hell that Spider-Man was like, hey, you know what? I killed your dad, but he didn't really kill his dad. No. But you try talking some sense into James Franco. It's impossible.
Well, he hit on a 17-year-old. I am not surprised.
Should I ask? Is this a new like little social media?
Yeah, actually, it happened on social media. Apparently, he met a 17-year-old girl from Scotland in New York City, and connected with her on Instagram and started sending her messages asking if she wants to meet up and if he should get a hotel room. And then the rest of the internet found out, and he got out in front of it and said something to the effect of, I don't understand social media.
Well, there you have it, folks.
Yeah.
It shows that even James Franco can't resist a woman in a kilt. There you go. In the confrontation between Parker and Harry Osborn, Harry gets a bobo. He hits his head and falls down and goes boom.
Coincidentally, for the plot, he loses his memory.
Yes, that's right. He suffers some memory loss, which is what Mason felt that he wished happened to him.
Oh, so much. So much. Oh, God. You have no idea. This is such a bad movie. I feel pain talking about it.
So, at this point in time, Mason connects the most with Harry Osborn.
Yeah. Speaking of, before we move on, can we just address how ridiculous Spider-Man's powers are in this series? Because he has them until he doesn't, and when he doesn't, it's only to suit the plot. Like, for example, Spider Sense. Which
that was something I noticed when Harry got the drop on him. It's like, hey man, where's your Spider Sense?
Yeah, like
that is one of his most important. That's one of the things that sets him so apart from other heroes.
Yeah,
is one of his most unique abilities. And you can't just jump and surprise Spider-Man. That's the whole point behind Spider-Man.
Yeah, and
the simple way around that is just have it so that he senses him coming, and he just happens to be faster than Spider-Man. Yeah. Like, it's that simple.
Yeah.
Just because he has the Spider Sense doesn't mean he dodges everything. He doesn't.
No.
But yeah, I concur.
Thank you.
Hey, screenwriters, get it right. Spider Sense. Jeez.
It totally should have done that, like, slow Matrix thing.
And then you see the little thing, all the cars, and you're going...
and then a fly goes by.
And then it shows, like, some couple fighting in the window going... Why did you dare?
And then Harry comes in on his weird little... snowboard thing.
And then Peter tries to jump, but he's just not fast enough. And then, boom. Problem solved. The end. Yeah. Well, no, not the end. That's the beginning.
Yeah. Although if it was the end...
Mason's like, hey, that was really short.
Yes. A nice, short, clean movie. Yeah. Nice little fight. And then I get to go home. I would have paid $12 for that.
Yeah, I might have felt ripped off myself.
Well, considering how it played out after that, that's where it starts to lose everything.
Harry goes to the hospital, and he starts to make a recovery, but he can't remember anything. But he's just like, oh, Peter's my best friend, and so is Mary Jane. I love those guys. Yeah. And the nurse is like, uh-huh. So then they find out
Sandman.
And
then Sandman starts, and
well, at this point, he's just Flint Marko.
Yes, and
a two-bit crook,
escaped felon, technically, who's a criminal because his daughter is sick. Is just trying to get some money for her to have supposedly a life-saving operation.
Does it say how she's sick? I can't remember.
No.
Okay, she's just
generically sick kid.
Okay. Right.
The tubes in her nose and carrying around the oxygen.
He goes, "Daddy, I'm not well." I know,
Yeah.
honey. I know.
Yeah. So he escapes prison. The mother of his kid says, "You can't be here. Can't see your kid." So he leaves after donning his iconic green striped shirt, and ends up at a testing facility for something or whatnot.
Yeah. Basically, they're testing sand. Yeah.
Something to do with sand.
And then they're like, "Hey, there's some change in mass." They're like, "It's a bird,"
Which is ridiculous.
It's a little bit. Well, you know what though? Like that just is an illustration of human laziness, and I think it's actually kind of realistic.
No. It's improper science.
No. The thing it is. You're right, but to me it doesn't seem outside of the realm of possibilities of people just going we're just so this far on the test.
Yeah, but that's not how science would do it. If there's the slightest change in the conditions you're trying to do your experiment in, everything has to be shut down. You check it out, and then
you don't create a supervillain. Okay, well, clearly you're a much better scientist than these guys. But I'm just saying that I'm like, you know what? That makes sense as like a human error thing.
But not what a scientist would have done.
Well, scientists are humans too. They're just smarter.
Yes.
They're just like, hey man, I know more things.
Yeah.
More sciencey things.
And they should know how to do an experiment properly.
Hey man, do they tell us how to podcast?
Yes.
Do they come in here and go like, hey man, you're not podcasting correctly?
Really? You haven't been getting the emails?
Wow. No, because I haven't been distributing any episodes because Nathan hasn't gotten the website up. I'm so frustrated about it. He said it'd be ready like a month ago. So anyways, Sandman is born because of science and sand.
Yes.
And
because reasons.
What was his origin in the comics? Do you even know?
Oh, he ended up on a beach by a nuclear reactor bomb test or something like that. Then something happened and he turned into Sandman. So the movie wasn't too far off.
Okay, yeah. I mean that's the thing is that like, as much as we're like, it's really bogus that a dude can turn into sand from some sciencey thing. It is, but it's a comic book villain and he was also another really early Spider-Man villain.
Yeah.
Like, so it's just, no matter what, the concept of Sandman is a little ridiculous.
Well, still though, the thing about Spider-Man and Marvel in general is that they have a habit of targeting people's fears and then making very engaging characters and heroes out of that. So back in the 60s when Spider-Man and the Hulk and the Fantastic Four all premiered, everyone's huge fear was nuclear war and radiation, and like radiation was this thing that nobody knew what it did or what it could do.
That's right, yeah. And so like, yeah, a lot of the characters were made through like radiation, like Spider-Man and the Hulk as well. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So that makes sense. So in this case, Sandman was another nuclear radiation character, I guess. Yeah.
Although the Sam Raimi Spider-Man movies made a very distinct point of going the genetic route, which is more in line with Ultimate Spider-Man.
Yeah, which I guess is more in line with people's fears in science today.
Yeah.
Okay.
Of genetic engineering and implications of what science is doing with it. Because there's a lot of questions that Ultimate Spider-Man, the books, delve into very, very nicely. with like, you know, human rights and the ownership and all sorts of fun topics like that. Sandman is another byproduct of that, as is Electro and a little bit Doc Ock and Spider-Man himself.
Back to the plot.
Back to the plot.
Spider-Man and Mary Jane have a date. A rock falls from the sky, and out comes a black costume. Or, well, no, it's a costume. A black goopy thing that latches onto Peter's little bike, and Peter takes it home.
It winds up somehow in his apartment, and then just kind of hangs out for a little bit as we go back to Sandman and everything he's doing.
He's just illin' and chilling at Peter's place. He's like, oh man, this is a nice little cozy pad. Because he's an alien costume.
Or plot
and,
convenience, or God.
Well, I'll dive into a little bit more on that later. Eddie Brock is a new photographer for the Bugle, trying to get a full-time job at the Bugle.
Yep.
Which Peter also wants to get, because Peter's actually been there longer.
Yep.
Even though there was a mention of an Eddie in the first Spider-Man movie, but I guess now we can assume it was not Eddie Brock.
Or Eddie is another freelancer. But yeah, internal continuity, another problem with the movie, because the first two kind of do a really good job of lining up with each other, and the third one, I think the writer sneezed, and then that's how we got the movie.
Anyway.
So
basically now we got
Eddie Brock and New Goblin. They didn't even call him Hobgoblin. He's just...
Well, I don't think he was supposed to be Hobgoblin.
No,
because Harry Osborn was never the Hobgoblin. He was the second Green Goblin.
Yes, but in Ultimate Spider-Man, they turned him into the Hobgoblin instead.
Oh, yeah. I see. That was probably after I stopped following Ultimate Spider-Man.
Oh, it was such a good story.
I believe it. It's just, I guess it's just that I just stopped being into... I stopped reading comics at a certain point. Just diverted my attention elsewhere. I think I just wanted focusing a lot on...
Girls?
No, I was going to say movies and music. No, I mean, I tried to focus on girls, but they didn't really want to focus back. So
I know the feeling.
Anyway.
So Eddie Brock is dating Gwen Stacy, which is wrong.
It's weird. The usage of Gwen Stacy. Well, okay, actually, we'll get into. I guess we've explained enough of the plot. Basically, we've established that Harry Osborn's lost his memory, and because he knew from the last movie that Peter Parker was Spider-Man.
Yep.
In this one, he has no idea. So Harry's lost his memory. Sandman's at large. Oh, and Flynn Marko apparently killed Uncle Ben.
Yep, that's another thing that they wedged in there.
But yeah, so the other guy was just an accomplice who fell out the window and was like, hey, I ran and robbed this guy and now I'm dead.
Yeah.
And there's an alien costume and Eddie Brock, who's really mad at Peter Parker. Well, later anyway.
Will be
mad. Anyway.
But yeah, so far, Peter Parker and Spider-Man have far too many rivals. There's New Goblin, Harry Osborn, who is currently without memory, waiting in the wings. There's Sandman, who he's trying to deal with. And then there's Eddie Brock waiting in the wings, but currently he's a professional rival of Peter Parker.
Okay, yeah, so now we'll talk a little bit about the characters. There's a lot of new ones.
Mm-hmm.
And Gwen Stacy is kind of an interesting choice. First, I want to say that I thought she was very well portrayed by Bryce Dallas Howard. I think I love Bryce Dallas Howard. I think she is a magnificent talent, like one of the finest actresses working on Hollywood today.
Mm-hmm.
And she surprisingly pulled off the look. And I always found it kind of ironic that they cast Mary Jane as Kirsten Dunst, and she's a natural blonde.
Yeah.
And Bryce Dallas Howard is a redhead cast into a blonde.
Yeah.
Somehow they make it work, which is great. But I thought the choice was odd. Because, I mean, Gwen Stacy's they must recognize she's got this sort of she's kind of like a sacred character,
She's kind of sacred and extremely iconic. And every single time that some writer thinks that they'll toy with Gwen Stacy's history or story or anything, I get immensely upset about it because they never do it justice. There was this storyline in the comics where it was revealed that Gwen Stacy cheated on Peter while abroad in Paris.
Oh yeah, with Norman Osborn.
With Norman Osborn, and then had twins.
You know what though, like, that was a very deeply considered story, and very, like, it was pretty fascinating. I mean, the thing is, like, it is one of those characters where it's sort of like you're kind of dancing on a very fine line, comic book writers. But at the same time, like, that was really well executed, and I even remember reading some reviews on it where the reviewer was like deep down, I'm upset by this turn of events, but it fits everything really well. I don't know. Maybe the idea is that we shouldn't hold Gwen Stacy on a pedestal, and recognize that she's a more human character than just like this perfect girlfriend that dies to make Peter more tortured.
But the revelation that not only she cheated, but had kids who were then raised to hate Peter and want Spider-Man dead, is salting the wound. A wound which has never healed, by the way.
So by the wound, you mean Peter Parker's wound?
Yes.
Yeah, no, that's true. Like, he's still kind of haunted by the death of Gwen Stacy.
He's haunted by the death of everybody.
It's yeah, this guy, he doesn't handle the concept of mortality too well. Sorry, Peter, like, you're a really noble character, but yeah, like, it's a fact of life. People die.
Yeah, and he kind of takes responsibility just a smidge too far. But like, I'll let things be. It's just that, like, Gwen Stacy as a storyline, I think should be sacred, and I think it needs to be handled properly and gently. You shouldn't be able to do too much with it.
Well, in this case, in the movie, they really didn't try to do a Gwen Stacy storyline at all. They had the character with a name.
Yeah.
Probably were different characters they could have used, but they decided to go with someone more iconic. And I don't think, like, it does the character, like, a huge disservice. She still seems like really smart and really noble character. So it's not like they like slotted her up or.
But we also don't get a lot of time with her to see that, because before too long, she's never seen or heard from again.
Yeah, I guess there is a little bit of that where it's sort of like when she's kind of mostly only there to service the plot. But at the same time, actually, you know what? Counterpoint to the point I just said is that when she exits the film, she is noticeably upset with Peter Parker. So it's not just that she vanishes. It's probably more that she's choosing not to see him at all anymore. That seems actually kind of realistic. In that if she's like, you were just using me to get at your ex-girlfriend, I don't want to see you. Once she's removed from Peter Parker's life, what reason does she have to be in the movie anymore?
Yeah, but then again, it kind of makes her, in my opinion, for this movie, an unimportant character. One where she could be completely removed from the plot, and it really wouldn't be different.
Well, I mean, you know what? No, I think she has uses in the plot. I think that there are...
Everything she does for the story of Spider-Man 3 was done, or could have been done better by Mary Jane.
Well, no, because part of it is that... Okay, this is something we didn't touch in the plot, and it actually plays a really big part in the first half of the film, is that Mary Jane is going through some problems of her own. She got horrible reviews for a play that she was in, and got fired from that play. So she has to take up like a waitressing job, and so basically she's just in a really bad spot in life and just really needs Peter's support. And whether Peter even knows it or not, his attention is divided. Part of that division, or at least what like Mary Jane sees as a rivalry, is
Gwen Stacy.
Gwen Stacy's in the equation.
Yeah,
so basically, I do understand why Gwen Stacy's there. Did it have to be Gwen Stacy, or could it have been someone else? It could have been, but they decided to make Gwen Stacy, and the character serves her purposes and comes and goes in such a way that does actually fit the story. So I'm not going to complain too much.
I will.
Okay, you will.
Yes.
Flint Marko. Oh, you know what? I don't remember I don't remember this actor's name.
Hayden Christian Church? No, wait.
Thomas Hayden. Thomas Hayden Church.
Yes.
You were like mixing up Hayden Christensen.
Yeah.
Okay.
God.
Thomas Hayden Church. You know, I actually thought he did a really good job.
He is an amazing actor.
Yeah.
Like Sideways, amazing movie. And really everything he does that I've seen him in has been an amazing performance.
This is the only like blockbuster I've ever seen him in.
Yeah.
So I mean, I suspect he is more of like an indie actor who they found who just kind of happened to he fit the role pretty well. But yeah, I was actually pretty impressed by him. And you know what's great is that like I'm gonna be honest, I never liked the character Sandman. I didn't connect with him. He always seemed like kind of a brute. And
well, there was a point in the comics where he actually switched sides and started to become an ally of Spider-Man's.
I remember that, and then that changed. And actually, there was a point in the comics where he was dead.
Well, who hasn't been?
Well, I mean, that's the thing is that but he was dead for a fair bit of time. But I think he's back now.
Mm-hmm.
I think Venom bit him, and that somehow killed him. I honestly thought that the portrayal of Sandman did a lot of service to the character.
Yeah.
I think
He should have been the main villain?
Yeah, I think that there should have been more focus on him. And the thing is, like, initially that was a bit of a disappointing idea for me, but then... Because I didn't like the character, but I thought that there was... if they expanded him out a bit more, and, you know, put as much focus on him as they did, like, say, Dr. Octopus, then it actually probably would have panned out pretty well.
Yeah. Lose the other two villains, and then you have a very, very nice, concise, tight movie.
Yeah, so let's talk Eddie Brock. This was one of the strangest casting choices, I thought. Topher Grace, known best for That 70s Show, was...
and In Good Company?
Well, yeah, he's had a few roles here and there, and he was also on Predators. Although I think that was after this. Yeah, Eddie Brock in the comics is he a reporter or also a photographer? I think he's a reporter.
Yeah. In comics, though, Eddie Brock was a muscle-bound, like...
Yeah, he was huge.
Yeah.
He was a bodybuilder as well as a reporter.
Yeah.
And that was, like, that's why Venom is as, like, huge as he is. Because, I mean, the black costume doesn't, like, change the way that you look. It just covers you and protects you.
It also augments you.
It augments your strength, but it doesn't, like, change your shape. So as like Eddie Brock is a massive character. Like, he's big.
Yeah.
So Topher Grace, I mean, even though he got into, like, better shape and did beef up a little for the role, he's no Eddie Brock.
No.
I don't think he ever could be. I don't think he has the build for it.
I mean, don't get me wrong. I liked the That 70s Show up until he left.
Okay.
To do this movie.
I didn't. Well, no, it wasn't just. I think he just a movie career in general.
Yeah, but
which it hasn't panned out that well.
But even still, like, he had a kind of a successful gig, and then Spider-Man 3 came along, and the choice was commit all of your time to the movie or the TV show. He couldn't have done both because the schedules would have conflicted. So he quit That 70s Show and went on with Spider-Man 3. And the show lasted maybe like another year or so, and it was the worst season ever.
I do remember watching it and not knowing half the characters and being like, what's the point of this anymore?
Yeah.
Because I think there was a point where Ashton Kutcher left as well. Mm-hmm. And then, like, without Ashton Kutcher and Topher Grace, like, what are you
don't got a show.
What are you even watching, man? Yeah. It's not That 70s Show.
No.
I think I understand the logistics behind the choice of him as Eddie Brock, because physically he kind of looks similar to Tobey Maguire. There is this sort of, like, connection between the two, so visually on a visual level, but at the same time, like, it's just not loyal to Eddie Brock.
But on top of that, it's not the point of Venom. Venom is supposed to be the antithesis of Peter Parker. He's willing to do everything that Spider-Man is not.
Yeah, I mean that though Venom has a in the comics, he goes through quite a bit of an anti-hero phase as well, where he decides he's going to use his powers for good.
Yeah.
But good in the loosest sense, in that he's also willing to
kill if it suits his purposes.
Or even, like, as punishment for people's crimes, he will kill them.
I think that he's been known as the Lethal Avenger.
No, the Lethal Predator.
Yes.
Oh, no, Lethal Protector.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, that sounds right. That is a thing.
Yeah.
Oh, man, I love that picture of Venom, man. That is, like, the best picture of Venom.
Todd McFarlane, thank you so much for that.
That's not Todd McFarlane.
Todd McFarlane created the character.
Yes, but this is Mark Bagley is that artist right there.
Okay, well.
But yes, Todd McFarlane, he designed the
original. So Venom is the antithesis of Spider-Man. He has all of his powers. He is one of few who are immune to Spider-Man's spider sense.
That's right, because the costume knows Peter Parker so well that it can navigate its way basically around the spider sense.
Yeah.
I mean, the thing is, like, Venom has always been one of my favorite villains for Spider-Man. There's such a fascinating aspect to him. Like, visually, he looks amazing. But also, like, there is that level of him having this twisted sense of justice. He believes himself to be a good character, and that Spider-Man is the evil character. And that Spider-Man must be punished for what he's done to Eddie Brock.
And on top of that, like, the symbiote itself holds a whole lot of jealousy and rejection for, having been bonded to Spider-Man and then being tossed aside.
Yeah, it's true, yeah. So the symbiont, like, it says, hey, man, I gave you so much. I gave you so much power, and you just got rid of me. Just like that. What I will say is that I think that they really do stick true to a lot of the characteristics of Eddie Brock.
Except physicality, build.
Well, yeah, apart from the physical characteristics, I'm talking about, like, on the character's, like, person. Eddie Brock does not take responsibility for his wrongs. He completely blames others for his misfortune, and he is so consumed by vengeance and hate. Now, actually, I think this is kind of where Topher Grace falls short, and that I don't think he conveyed that well. When he was in the church, the iconic church scene that was actually in the comics and the cartoon, and where Brock gets the costume, he's mopey. He prays to God to kill Peter Parker, but it's just like, but he's like, just kill Peter Parker. But I felt like there should have been more
rage.
For lack of a better term, more venom in his voice. Is that it? Just more rage, more anger, more bitterness.
Yeah.
But in this, it was too whiny.
Yep.
I felt that sort of didn't work with the there's a whole theme behind the film, which we'll get into a little bit more. In fact, let's I think we talked about a lot of the new characters.
Yeah.
So. Is there anything you want to touch on with the development of the already established characters?
Okay, well, I would say that there isn't.
Really?
Yeah. Characters normally have a nice little arc, and these characters have a nice line.
You see, I really felt that one of the things that this film did like really differently than the last two, as far as like making up for some mistakes, is I felt Mary Jane was the strongest she's ever been. I felt that she really became a character who had her own drives and motivations, her own feelings, and was like willing to kind of stand up to Peter and say, like, hey, like, you know what, you're being kind of selfish, and I need you right now. I'm going through a really tough time. And Peter was actually being the one who was kind of self-absorbed and
but I would give you a little credit for that point if she actually revealed everything she's going through to him, which she didn't.
Well,
and
I think...
on top of that, speaking of Mary Jane, I don't know how many auditions you've been in or how many you've done for musicals, but if your voice doesn't carry past the first row, then you don't get the part to begin with. Because the casting director and the director and the producer are sitting there, like, near the back.
Well, it's different projecting into an empty audience than a full audience. But, again, like, I'm sure this has happened. I'm sure that this is something that at some point in Broadway has happened.
When and if it's happened because of poor performance, not because the actor's voice would not carry. If your voice doesn't reach the back, they know at the audition, and you're not called back. You don't get the part.
whatever the case is, okay, that's just like technicalities.
It's bad writing. It's written by somebody who clearly doesn't understand theater.
Maybe. I can neither confirm nor deny. All I'm saying is that what's important is that Mary Jane is having this very personal struggle. She has her own story. It is separate from Peter, so she's really becoming a character of her own. Mm-hmm. And I think that's worth acknowledging because, I mean, that was our main complaint about the first movie was like that Mary Jane is there to get captured and for Spider-Man to save and to love, and that's basically it. But now it's like she really is becoming a character of her own. I mean, she's going through her own struggles and she's trying to make her own decisions, and I mean, she still does get captured at the end, and everything. But and so there is still that sort of like, I'm having so much bad luck with these supervillains. But that is I think it makes sense in this context, and it is the supervillains using her to get to Spider-Man. Well, I guess that's how it was in
Spider-Man 2 with Doc Ock
and Spider-Man,
Spider-Man with the Green Goblin.
But, this time she knew what she was signing up for. So, she's like, yeah. At the end of Spider-Man 2, she's like, it's going to happen. I love you. I'm willing to dangle off a building or two for you, Spider-Man.
I didn't see that scene.
It was all in the subtext.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Sure. Okay.
Well, no, she did say, like, that she has a say in, and then, like she has a say in the risks. So it's implied. It's like I know that I might be in danger by being with you, but I want to be with you. I think that it makes sense. So in this case, I actually think that Mary Jane's a really strong character and one of the stronger characters because I actually think I like her better than Peter Parker in this movie. Peter he's obnoxious to a lot of it. Even before he gets the costume.
Oh God.
He's really like
so bad.
He's so self-absorbed. He gets so caught up in like the Spider-Man mania, and it's weird because he's usually such an insecure character,
and now also usually down to earth and humble. This is another example of a writer thinking, I need this, so I'll just make this character do this, so it serves the plot that I have in my head, rather than an effective story for a character that is engaging and consistent with who they are.
Yeah, so I mean, he has his moments where I sympathize a little bit because it seems like there are a lot of points in time where he's really genuinely trying and just kind of mystified. Because I mean, the thing is, like, his communication with Mary Jane is bad in this film, like on both their parts. Mm-hmm. Sometimes that's actually just the way it is in relationships, where it's like it's not that you don't. I mean, sometimes often that's the key behind a lot of problems is that the communication just isn't working.
Yeah.
So. Actually, that's kind of a nice part about this film, I just realized, is that it is kind of a realistic relationship. And, because you think at the end of Spider-Man 2, she comes in through his door, she's in a wedding dress, she's like, I'm ready to take all the risks and be with you. And then, when it comes time for them to actually, they want to, Peter wants to marry her and everything, they're actually going through very realistic relationship motions. They need to learn how to talk. How to communicate and how to overcome problems that aren't problems of her dangling off a building,
Yeah.
So that's kind of I don't know. I just realized that that's actually a really nice point in this film.
And I'm so glad that we got a 2-hour movie called Peter Parker that could deal with all of those issues and wasn't really at all about supervillains or bank robberies or avenging his uncle's death.
Come on. You mean to tell me that you don't want any personal character developments?
No. I want a well-told, concise story, and already we have 3 bad guys, 3 distinct supervillains with their own stories, their own motivations, and their own plots.
Okay, yeah.
In a movie this messed up, we have literally no time to effectively do all of this different subplots because we have 3 villains. We have Mary Jane, we have Gwen Stacy, we have Eddie Brock's silly little subplot with I'm dating your daughter, Captain Stacy. I'm Eddie Brock.
Yeah, that is a little story that went nowhere.
Absolutely nowhere.
So that could end up on the cutting room floor. Okay, here's we're gonna lay it out right here. Okay, so first of all, I'm gonna say right now and you're gonna not like this at all. You're gonna get really frustrated.
Oh God.
I actually enjoy Spider-Man 3.
Oh.
Upon watching it, okay, I watched it in theaters. I liked it then. As I distanced myself, I did start to see some of the problems in it, and the problems they're there.
There's so many of them. Oh God.
But I think there is actually a lot more consideration in the screenplay than you give credit for. And I'm also going to say that I firmly believe that people hate this movie because everyone decided they wanted to hate this movie. And hear me out, okay? Hear me out.
People hate it because it's legitimately bad and it's messy.
Okay.
And it is a prime example of what not to do if you're writing a script.
Do you remember the summer of 2007? Because I remember it very distinctly because I worked in a movie theater, and there were a lot of part 3s coming out that year. There was a lot of sequels, and there was a lot of big blockbusters. It wasn't a great summer. Spider-Man 3 was among the better releases. Okay. Here now again, and I'm not the only one who thinks so. Okay, if you look at the Rotten Tomato scores, this movie is actually certified fresh. It's like 63%.
What?
I'm gonna show you right here, right now.
What?
Rotten Tomatoes.
I do not believe this.
I guarantee you. Spider-Man 3 is certified fresh at 63%.
Oh my God!
Now hear me out. Okay, that is a fair distance from the 90% and 92% or whatever that Spider-Man 1 or 2 were at. But Spider-Man 3 is 63%. Now, if you look at the other big releases of that year, Pirates of the Caribbean at World's End was at like 30-something%. That movie I did not like at all.
That was terrible.
Shrek the Third also
that was terrible.
Transformers was at like 50-something%. But people walked away from Transformers. They loved it. They still hold that first movie in high regard. I'd say Spider-Man 3 is better than that.
They're both terrible.
There was a lot of films that came out, part 3s. Spider-Man 3 was among the better of the... Even actually, you know what? Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix, that's the one of the series that I didn't like very much. So all in all, although I think that was like a December release, I don't remember exactly.
Yeah, if I remember right, Harry Potter films usually worked around December.
Yeah, and the thing is, I like a lot of the Harry Potter series, but I think that one was the one that I didn't care for. So what I'm saying is, like, even critically speaking, Spider-Man 3's not that bad. People just kind of they get so focused on the bad parts, they forget.
There's so many of them.
They forget about all the redeeming factors and all that the movie actually has to offer.
But there's so few of those.
Okay, so right now, I'm going to talk about, and I'm sure you and I will expand on this, about the things that I would change to make this a much better film. Because I like it, I also see how much potential it has to have been much better than it was.
So we're going to do a story editor for Sam Raimi time?
Yes.
Okay.
First of all, I think one of the big critical errors: don't make Sandman Uncle Ben's killer. That just messes too much with the mythos of very, like, let's face it, that's important mythos.
Yeah.
It almost moots the point of Spider-Man.
And also, like, the motivation and whatnot for that is never talked about, really. It's like, oh, my daughter, yeah, but then it doesn't really get that expanded upon, and...
Well, again, like we mentioned before, if they made this a movie about Sandman, I think that would have been pretty solid. Although I think that the progression of James Franco / Harry Osborn, I guess.
Yeah.
That did kind of reach its logical point, I think.
Okay, so what I would do is I would start out that Spider-Man is having moderate success but hasn't quite won everyone over because Jameson is still hard on his campaign of hate.
Yeah.
So more people like him, but not everybody. So there's still a little animosity.
I do think that Eddie Brock should be in this movie. And one of the things that Eddie Brock should do is try and like dig up some dirt on Spider-Man, like he does. It's because that just seems to service that character really well.
Yeah.
And
yeah. That is good. So Jameson's still going hard on his campaign. Maybe we can make Eddie Brock like a private investigator or like a contracted reporter.
I think he was a reporter in the comics. So, I mean, we should just make him that.
But maybe like a, off the record, like not on the payroll kind of, under the table reporters to try and get the secrets and whatnot.
Yeah, could be. I think that's kind of what he was in the 90s cartoon. Wasn't he? Or I don't know. I don't remember exactly. I think he was fired from the Bugle and then got rehired, and then it was kind of complicated. What I liked about the Spider-Man cartoon is that they really stretched out Eddie Brock's story, and you got to, like, very early on in the series. Way before there was an alien costume, you got to know a little bit about Eddie Brock.
And he had a few run-ins and, like, a legitimate reason not to like Spider-Man. And, that should happen here, too.
In fact, wouldn't have killed for, like, Eddie Brock to even been in the last movie, I mean, I don't know exactly where he would have fit, but like it would require a little more like foresight.
I think that there should only be one supervillain, and it should either be Sandman or Harry Osborn's transformation to a goblin.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is that maybe they could have balanced those two. Maybe, but
I'd still play it safe and say just have one. If you go with Sandman after the origin and him like stumbling through being a supervillain, quote unquote, he's tapped by Harry to go after Spider-Man specifically, and then he's given like what Harry knows, and using his nice little sand powers, he just does that as effectively as possible. If it's Harry, then he should try to goblin out as Hobgoblin to give a counterpoint to Norman Osborn's Green Goblin.
I think that audiences might find that too redundant, though. Because basically to have a Green Goblin first movie, and then a Dr. Octopus, and then already a second Goblin, I don't know if they would be okay with that. I mean, I would feel like with the number of rogues there are in Spider-Man's rogue gallery, is like, they couldn't have picked anyone else. But at the same time, but Harry Osborn's story does need to come to an end. Because it just feels like it's already been stretched out. It was a little bit exhausting in the second movie.
But going the route of Hobgoblin. In the original comics, Hobgoblin was a counterpoint to the Green Goblin, being that he was not insane.
That's true. Yeah, he was just kind of evil.
Yeah. And manipulative, and he kept everybody guessing for years and years.
Yeah, nobody knew who he was. In fact, anytime you found out who, I don't know, there was actually a few speculative who's the Hobgoblin?
And then there were a few people unmasked who turned out later to have either been brainwashed or paid or in some way manipulated into being the Hobgoblin for a time.
But anyway, I think that they could have balanced out Sandman and for at least for the variation of character, Sandman and then Harry Osborn's Goblin. I don't know exactly how they would work it out. They would have to change a few things around, because once you start taking out characters, you have to reorganize the story a little bit.
I would also say that Peter and Mary Jane are either already married or engaged.
I think it wouldn't hurt to have the proposal.
Yeah, but it's just another thing that you have to deal with. In the movie that we got, we had, or we were going toward that, and it was still very, very cluttered. So either they're engaged to be married already, or already married.
Okay.
And Harry doesn't have his accident that conks him out without a memory for 2 acts. And Venom is not...
Okay, I don't know. It feels like I said I wanted to just voice some of my complaints. You're trying to rewrite the entire movie.
I am.
And that's not what I want to do. I would say this, is that I think that having Venom as a rushed third act villain was another one of the cardinal sins of this film. Because I feel like, and I know why it happened. Or at least hearsay. I guess it's hearsay, technically.
It's the same reason that we had Gambit in X-Men Origins Wolverine.
Well, in this case, more specifically, it was my understanding that Sony pressured Sam Raimi into it. Sam Raimi didn't even really like the character Venom and didn't want to do it. And so there was a lot of pressure into the screenwriters putting Venom in there.
Well, the reason that they wanted to do that is because of fan service.
Well, yeah. But fans don't want a character to be inserted for their service. They wanted the character to be done with a due amount of respect.
Yeah, yeah.
And then Venom is a very complicated character. Mm-hmm. They could have used this movie to start setting him up.
Yes.
They set up the black costume, set up Eddie Brock.
Yeah.
Save Venom for the next movie.
Mm-hmm.
Because, I mean, the thing is, like, you just don't get to know him. And also, I don't like I think they should have, like, actually made Venom different. He just talked, like, with Toby Grace. Topher Grace.
Yeah.
Topher Grace with his sort of, like, a slightly deeper voice. When they could have done something really cool with it.
Yeah.
And just like the cartoon, they had Eddie Brock's voice, but there was, like, a monster voice on top of it.
Which was also saying Venom, Venom, Venom. As Eddie Brock was, like, in between words and sentences.
Venom, Venom, Venom?
The monster voice, like, he would pause in between seconds or something and be like, and then...
Oh, yeah, all the time you'd hear...
But, like, it was actually saying Venom.
Okay.
In those moments.
I can't hear that at all. I could see that being in the creative process of, like, them saying, like, let's make him say Venom and just, like, play around with that sound a bit more.
Yeah. Go back and check, and I guarantee you'll hear it like I did.
I'll try. I'll give it the old college try.
Awesome.
So I feel, yeah, that's one of the major things is that you can't rush Venom, man. Like, this is a character, he does, I mean, you have to acknowledge, he means a lot to a lot of people.
Oh, so much.
And he just wasn't given the right amount of screen time or the right amount of, like, they could have done a whole movie on this.
Yep.
Is that Venom knew everything about Spider-Man.
Mm-hmm.
He, because of the symbiote was on Parker.
Mm-hmm.
Basically was linked to his brain, understood everything, went on to Eddie Brock, transferred all of that into Eddie's brain.
Yep.
And as such was able to systematically, like, wreck Parker's life and torture him, essentially, psychologically. And there was nothing Parker could do because, A, Venom could be anywhere. He can't sense him.
Yeah.
And also, he's physically superior. Like, Spider-Man on a physical level does not stand a chance.
Yep.
You gotta enjoy the suspense cinematically that presents. Like, that is premium cinema handed to you on a golden platter.
Although technically in the comics, the Green Goblin did find a way to circumvent Peter Parker's spider sense, used it to discover who he is, learn everything that he could about him, and then systematically destroyed his life as well.
Well, they tried to do a little bit of that in the first movie.
But kind of failed. Which is, okay, fine. You want to have the movie be a different thing, okay. But Eddie Brock destroyed Peter Parker.
There's just something very personal about it. Like, it was very personal.
Yeah.
I don't think it was as personal with Norman Osborn. I think it was more like a rivalry, like sort of like, I'm a supervillain, he's a superhero, I'm gonna mess him up a little.
Yeah.
And also there's that insanity factor with Eddie Brock. It was like, it was vengeance. It was like, you've wrecked my life, I'm gonna wreck yours.
Yeah.
All right, so Mason, here's the scene we gotta talk about.
Oh no.
The emo hair.
Oh, God.
Dance scene.
Oh no. Okay,
so we can disagree right now.
Yeah.
It's just got to go.
It does.
It's just,
yeah.
Like I'll say right here, how did nobody on set recognize what was happening? Like, honestly, like, if I was there, I would have gone to Sam Raimi. If I played Spider-Man, I would have gone to Sam Raimi and been like, hey man, this is a bad idea. like there's no way.
Yeah.
There's no way that this is. No one's gonna like this. This could wreck the whole franchise.
Yeah.
You know that, man?
Yeah.
Like,
which, if not for this, like, that set of scenes where he is emo and, like, thrusting along.
I gotta say, like, okay, what were they thinking with the emo hair? There must have been some better idea. Like, just, like, honestly, if they really wanted a different hairstyle so you could differentiate between good Parker and bad Parker, just slick his hair back, maybe.
Or you know, you could do like the Superman spit curl.
No,
thing.
oh no, no! If you don't like the emo hair, you're not gonna like that. Come on.
Well, to be fair, I would like Superman spit curl better than what they gave us.
So we can agree that whole scene, that whole cluster of scenes was a bad move. That whole montage of him thrusting.
Oh god.
I mean, it makes for funny memes.
Oh.
But it's just such a horrendous miscalculation, and not only just because it's so goofy and just like too goofy, even for like this franchise, which has like a campiness to it.
Yeah.
The black costume, it emphasizes Spider-Man's darkness.
Yeah.
And sometimes in this movie, they get that right. Mm-hmm. They get it right when Spider-Man goes and kicks Harry Osborn's ass.
Yeah.
That's a really well done scene, and I really like that scene, and it shows like there's understanding behind it. Mm-hmm. Harry has been messing around with Peter's life. It's ticking him off. He's going there. He's taking the dark road. He's fighting back.
Yeah.
And he winds up doing really, like, he messes Harry Osborn up bad. And I think that is a pivotal moment and a beautifully executed scene.
It's like Mel Gibson in A Man Without a Face.
And the only problem with it is Peter's stupid hair.
Oh, yeah.
So, also the scene in the restaurant, not when he's dancing, but when he wound up, like, roughing up some of the other people there, and he wound up hitting Mary Jane. Also, great emphasis of the darkness that the costume provided. But nowhere should it ever like be like dancing on the street and pointing at women going hey and thrusting like that doesn't make any sense. No, it does a total disservice to what the character, I mean, it doesn't turn him into a horn dog. It just emphasizes his darkness.
Okay, so let's go back to the situation where you're Spider-Man and you're about to talk to Sam Raimi about, like, this is a bad idea. Now, imagine that you're getting paid $10 million. What do you do?
Wait, sorry, getting paid $10 million
for this one movie.
So I'm Tobey Maguire.
Yeah.
I'm getting paid $10 million.
$10 million to work on this picture.
Okay.
Sam Raimi's sitting in his chair behind the camera going, okay, now I'm going to want you to, like, Saturday Night Fever strut down the street and go, hey, like Fonzie. What do you do?
I go to him and I'm like, okay. Look, man, I think it's time we start taking my acting career a little more seriously. Okay? Look, man, I've cried like a little sissy numerous times in this series just for you. I'm not gonna pelvic thrust. Okay? You want to do this movie? Can I have a little bit of say in this? Look, can we get a different hairstylist? This guy does not know what he's doing.
So then the money doesn't change anything.
Why would the money change anything? I don't know what it's like to be given $10 million to be paid any. I have no idea what $10 million even looks like. but I don't understand, like, why would the money change anything?
My thinking was that maybe Tobey Maguire was going to talk to Sam Raimi, and he's like, "Can I talk to you about, like, the dancing that's in the script?" And then Sam Raimi just goes, "By the way, your check cleared." Okay, thank you.
Okay, well, I mean, for me, it would have emphasized the point that hey, I'm a professional. You know, like, I'm doing this this is my living. I don't want this to be thrown away. I want to be Spider-Man for a few more movies here. You know?
Well, apparently, like, even for Spider-Man 3, there was, I think I heard about a little bit of uncertainty if he was going to be in it or even continue afterwards.
Well, my understanding is that Spider-Man 4 was going to happen with Sam Raimi and Tobey Maguire attached. Mm-hmm. And probably, I think, Kirsten Dunst, too. And the ghost of James Franco. Yes, where they're haunted by Norman Osborn's ghost and Harry Osborn's ghost. Okay, so this podcast is going on a bit long, so let's try and wrap up a few things. I'm gonna say, so we talked about a lot of the flaws in the movie.
So many.
I'm gonna talk about one of the major things I did like, and that is
the credits. That's the thing that I loved the most.
They did have a pretty good killer song in the credits. The theme of vengeance and bitterness versus forgiveness.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's one of the things that carries out very thoroughly through the script.
Mm-hmm.
Well, there's the whole Sandman subplot with him killing Uncle Ben,
Mm-hmm.
and that enrages Spider-Man to the point where I think the black costume only latched onto him when it did,
Mm-hmm.
when he was dreaming about it,
Mm-hmm.
and he was feeling that anger and bitterness. So it was like the black costume was drawn to it.
Mm-hmm.
Similarly, when he was getting it off in the iconic church scene,
Mm-hmm.
that was a point when Eddie Brock was very vengeful and bitter as well, and the costume found its way to him. So it's almost like, okay, here's an equally vengeful source that I can feed off of.
Mm-hmm.
It also carries through with Harry Osborn's storyline about wanting vengeance with Peter.
Mm-hmm.
And so, like, there's actually a lot of consideration thematically through the script, and I think, for all of its flaws, I think it actually fulfills that really well. So, that is my what I like about it. What about you? Got to say something you liked other than the end credits. There's got to be something. Just I know you look. I don't know if you guys can't see this, but it looks like I've backed him into a corner. I don't want to push too hard, or he might like jump out and bite. You know.
So except the end credits.
Except the end credits.
The beginning credits.
Okay. You're like, oh, I remember those movies.
Yeah. In the beginning credits, we get to see shots from previous Spider-Man movies, and those were much, much better. It was a nice little reminder of how good it used to be.
Okay.
The body of the movie, though, no redeeming factors from the opening monologue bits all the way through to
the closing monologue bits.
the closing monologue.
I don't remember those monologue and closing.
Well, like the Harry and Topher Grace getting blown up or whatever.
You hate this movie a lot.
Yeah.
Okay.
So much. Quickly then, the Bechdel test.
Sure.
Okay, so there's a number of female characters who all have names who do not talk to each other in the slightest.
There is a scene where Mary Jane and Gwen Stacy talk, but I think they do mostly talk about Peter.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Peter's there, so...
Yeah.
I guess, yeah, it does... I can't think of any... Yeah, it does fail the Bechdel test.
It categorically fails.
Okay.
Yeah.
Again, I don't think that necessarily makes the movie sexist, because, I mean, what I would say is that...
Well, I'm sure I've said this before, but
Yeah.
the test isn't about whether a movie is sexist or not. It's about analyzing how women are portrayed in media.
And again, I'll stick to my point in that I think Mary Jane is a better character in this film than she was in the last ones.
Yeah.
Particularly, the first one is where she was the most flat.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we can agree on that. But she's improved a lot as a character, and I think that's an important thing to note. Bechdel test is a no-win. So, yeah, what's your rating out of 5? And also, would you recommend it, and who would you recommend it to?
Okay, so rating out of 5 would be negative 50.
Okay, 0 is as low as you can go.
Really? Because I think an exception should be made, because it's so bad. It's so bad. Oh, God. I'm sticking with negative 50.
Alright, so Mason's a 0. I'm going to give her a 3. A 3 out of 5. Could be better. It is a bit of a disappointment as far as like the strength of the series, and you know, a lot of people didn't like it to the point. Well, actually, no, I won't say that's why they didn't make Spider-Man 4, but I think some of the meddling that Sony did in this film was continued in the next one to the point where the Spider-Man 4 didn't get off the ground, and then we got a franchise reboot, which Mason's very fond of, and I well, actually, you know, we'll have to talk about that another time. I think we'll take a break from Spider-Man for a little while, though.
Okay.
Maybe when Amazing Spider-Man 3 comes out, we'll try and cover that trilogy. What do you think?
Yeah. Although technically, I think it's going to be more than a trilogy.
Could be. I don't know.
Yeah, I think there's going to be like 4 or 6 movies, and then a Sinister Six movie, which is going to be interesting to see because it'll be a villain-centric superhero film.
I mean, that's a little worrisome because, well, I mean, one of your complaints was that there's so many characters in this one.
Well, yes, but the Amazing Spider-Man series is slowly establishing, setting up all of the Sinister Six characters. So we'll get to see them face off against Spider-Man pretty much on their own. And then we will see them all come together in the Sinister Six film.
We'll see how it plays out.
It'll be the Avengers of Spider-Man.
The Avengers of Spider-Man, only where all the characters are bad guys instead.
Yeah. The Dark Avengers.
So yeah, well, I mean, the point is that this film didn't perform on par with the other films because of bad word of mouth, and as such, we got a franchise reboot as the next Spider-Man movie quite a few years later. Mm-hmm. Well, actually, not that many years later, all things considered, considering how long it usually takes for a franchise reboot. But anyway, I would recommend this to
no one. Don't make them suffer. Don't make people suffer through this.
I don't know. I mean, or I think basically in one of those cases where I would give a few disclaimers first before I recommend to someone, like, I'm like, look, man, you can when there's a bit of a montage with him like dancing around, you should fast forward through that. You skip that scene. You just move along. So maybe that's what I'd do.
Or torture victims.
Torture victims?
Yes, because if you want to really torture somebody.
So wait, you're saying that if somebody is has been tortured, you want me to torture them more? Is that what you're saying?
Well, instead of like waterboarding them, make them watch this movie. Like tie them down, and you'll get the same effect. And halfway through, it'll be like, I confess, the bodies are in the park.
I've tried to have a well-balanced opinion here, folks. I tried to state my cases fairly well. Well, anyway, we're going to call it a day.
Yeah.
Thanks so much for listening to the Checking the Gate podcast. This is Doug signing out.
And this is Mason saying goodbye.
And moving on.